So I would like to say hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Welcome you all to this workshop. My name is Sofie Hallstedt. I'm professor at Blekinge Institute of Technology in Sweden, and I will just give very short information first about Sustainable Design SIG. And of course, welcome also the host team from DTU to also run the workshop today. I am the chair of Sustainable Design SIG, and that is from this year actually. I have been part of the steering group since 2015, and I, together with Yuri Borgiani, who is the co-chair, and also we have other steering group members like Daniela Pigosso, Jeremy Foley, and Jan Leroy. We are all here to also present a little bit in the end after the workshop for you. So we will have the workshop, but after the workshop, we will also give you some more information about this SIG group. So the Sustainable Design SIG is a special interest group, one of the 18 of the Design Society. It was established by Team McAloone as Design Society's first SIG, and then it was called Eco Design SIG. We normally have annual SIG meetings held at either the ICED or the design conference, and therefore we also will have this annual SIG meeting right after this workshop. So for those of you that are interested to know a little bit more about what activities that we have been done during the year, you are very welcome to stay, and we will have a short presentation and also open up for discussion after the workshop. The goal for the Sustainable Design SIG is to support industry to deal with challenges for sustainable design implementation, and that bring also concepts such as circular economy seen from a design perspective based on scientific-based research. So a little bit more of what we have done during the year it will come after the workshop. But now I would like to give room and time for the workshop from Technical University of Denmark, DTU, and Mariia Kravchenko, Daniela Pigosso, and Team McAloone.
Yes, thank you so much for having us, making it possible to run our workshop. I hope I'm clear in sound and video, and I'll just start sharing my screen with you. And right there, you also see my PowerPoint presentation. So Sophia has told we are very pleased to have our workshop, which today is run by a DTU group. Me, Mariia Kravchenko, as the main facilitator. I'm a PhD researcher at the Danish Technical University, facilitated and supported by Associate Professor Daniela Pigosso and Professor Tim McAloone from both coming from Technical University of Denmark. So as been mentioned, we are here trying to collect ideas and present our take on how to support decisions when we see that practitioners experience sustainability-related trade-off situations during their decision making. So all of you are welcome, and of course, you could also use the chat box to ask any questions. I also have Tim and Daniela present here to probably support me in facilitating the workshop. But I also have an assistant called Panika. She will also be able to assist you with any other sort of more organizational and practical issues. Yes. So here is a quick agenda for today. I've decided, of course, to present the research that we are conducting here at DTU, which mainly concerns the larger project that DTU has led, called Circuit, and which was also a part that was that I contributed with my PhD project too. So I'll present them both, and then we will have a discussion on trade-offs, namely what they are, and just have this quick discussion why they may be necessary to support decisions in trade-off situations. And there, because we switch to another activity, because it's a workshop mode, so we will need your effort and knowledge in solving sort of one challenge of a trade-off, and that's what we named as navigating trade-offs without support. So I'll explain once we come closer to that task, where you will all work in groups and try to come up with some ideas how to sort of support decisions in trade-off situations, just as it is. Then we'll have break of 10, maybe 15 minutes, depending how it goes. And then we will have the same task, working on the same sort of case and challenge, but provided that we show our take on a trade-off support. So I'll present a few key features of that support, and I'll explain how you get your hands onto the support and how you can be guided by this support in resolving those challenges, followed by a quick feedback and a summary, and then of course just a panel discussion if you have any questions. Great. As I've said, DTU has led a quite large project in the Nordic region called Circuit. And this is one of the sort of larger projects that also framed my PhD that I'll talk later. As I mentioned, Circuit project has recently finished. It was run by it was run in 5 Nordic countries, facilitated by 5 research institutions, but it also included participation from practitioners. So many manufacturing companies have entered the workshop to co-develop, evaluate, and test the approaches and tools that we have developed. But the main aim of Circuit project was to conceptualize, develop, and implement a set of tools and approaches to enable industry, in that context it was a Nordic industry, to take a transition towards a sustainable society by means of circular economy. And in that sense, we took the perspective of more like a holistic approach to circular economy by considering the 6 focus areas. And as you could see, I'll skip for now focus area 1, but it basically refers to the starting point, like how can we change our business models to fit circular economy. So that's why we had the package focusing on business models. And then running so forth to the right, for instance, how can we change our products to design them to fit circular economy model? How can we use digitalization to support our circular economy transition? Then how can we close the loop of already running products or already products that are put on the market and return value embedded in them in the economy? And then how could we collaborate and network together to create a circular economy? In that project that recently finished, we have developed a lot of tools, more than 35, that are now all open access. So you're welcome to follow the link or request a link later to understand what is inside. And I didn't focus on that area, and this is namely the area that I contributed to, which concerns circular economy sustainability screening, which I'll also address through my PhD project in the next slide. I'll just take a look if everything goes well yeah, that's great, just to be on the safer side. Yeah. So my PhD project, as I mentioned, was within Circuit project. And with this project, we aimed at taking a look, how can we support development of circular economy, taking into consideration sustainability. So it's more about understanding sustainability performance and potential of our proposed circular economy strategies, and being able to introduce improvements in the design stage. So the main goal was to understand how to enable assessment of the potential sustainability performance of circular economy initiatives before their implementation, so during design and development stages. So what we did, we took a look at how could we mostly rely on leading performance indicators that are mostly suitable for early stages of decision making. Then we needed to understand how to make it possible to measure from social, economic, and environmental perspectives. So we have a triple bottom line sort of holistic understanding of the performance. Then we needed to make sure that we could support decision makers that are engaged in various business processes. And of course, we needed to understand how to support development of circular economy strategies, which vary, which are many in the circular economy domain. So we needed to understand how to take that into account. And then last but not least, we needed to also to understand how to support decisions when measurements are applied. And we could compare, for instance, two designs or two alternatives for circular economy. How could then we support decision making, understanding that there might be some conflicts between sustainability measurements known as trade-offs. So all in all, the main aim is to support design and eventually selection of a circular economy initiative that maximizes beneficial outcomes on all dimensions of sustainability. So these are the results so far in a very condensed mode, but what we have reached so far is a quite comprehensive database of more than 270 leading performance indicators that were all classified according to many aspects under economic, environmental, and social dimensions. As well as under 13 circular economy strategies that were taken from a circular economy framework developed by colleagues, by the partners in Circuit Project, and according to 5 business processes, and as I mentioned here on the slide, including, for instance, product development. Then we developed a procedure to support a more structured and systematic selection of key performance indicators, all taking into account the perspective of who is to use the indicator and for what circular economy initiative we need to use them for. So just to give you an example, we, for instance, have an initiative to take back our product to potentially reuse and recycle in a closed loop. So with this sort of initiative in mind, how can these both tools help us to understand which indicators to use to measure the initiative and then to be being able to improve it eventually. And another stage which is in the development, and this is what we'll focus on today, is a trade-off navigation. So how do we develop a support to guide the decisions in conflicting situations that involve sustainability measurements or sustainability-related criteria? Again, all in all, to provide a more informed process of decision making when designing circular economy initiatives. So I'm only having one screen at the moment. So please, if you have any questions, just put them in the chat, and we'll address them during those discussion time slots. So for now, what I wanted to, of course, to introduce is that what we understand by trade-offs. I have prepared just a few examples, but hopefully they will give some ideas what we are facing here. So imagine a product designer trying to understand how to make the product more durable. And by doing so, you may realize, the product designer may realize that it might conflict with other sort of desirable criteria, such as easier disassembly and recycling. Another example could include aiming to increase recycled materials in a product, but going higher or choosing to include higher content of recycled materials might lead to a compromised product lifespan. A third example I've included here is thinking of probably supporting a community somewhere overseas by buying their product, which also means that we would support them and create jobs and stable income. At the same time, realizing that this will probably require some long-haul transport and, as a consequence, increase in our greenhouse gas emissions. So these examples show situations of experiencing a trade-off, basically a situation where we, by making one choice or prioritizing one option, compromise or lose something else. So in my last example, we might realize that by doing the community support, we indeed increase our greenhouse gas emissions, or vice versa. And this is something that we firstly have encountered when we performed case studies with industrial practitioners and applied key performance indicators that we have developed in the previous stages of the research. And what we realized that, of course, the more criteria we used, the more sort of complex the decision could be because of quite often contradicting performances. And we looked for literature support, and we could also see that it is likely that by operating with multiple indicators or measurements or criteria from social, economic, and environmental dimension will require making decisions, navigating trade-off situations. So there will be conflict. Furthermore, as we could also see from these examples, trade-offs can arise either within or between sustainability dimensions and aspects. So obviously we could have either within one dimension, like environmental part, where we choose between recycled materials or product lifespan, or across dimensions, like including social and economic ones as well. What we could also see is that trade-offs can arise at different levels, like strategic, tactical, and operational levels. So it's quite complex to understand where those conflicting, so how previous decisions could have an effect on the decisions that are upcoming. Yeah, so here I thought we could just have a very quick game on understanding how the complexity sort of increases with increasing number of criteria we consider. So here I have a quick example of a table that I've compiled that consists of some indicators or criteria, and then two alternatives. So what I suggest we do, I would be presenting measurements for each criteria and for each alternative gradually for each. And I would then ask you to prioritize one option in the chat box. So for instance, I reveal recyclability measurement, and then you would put in the chat which, looking at the numbers here, which option would you rather go for? Just to support your sort of judgment, I've also included units and desired trends. So it's like higher is better or lower is better, etc. So just use your chat and use your chat and indicate your preferences. But I'll share my screen, reveal my measurements one by one. So we could go with recyclability first, and I have here 2 numbers. Could you indicate which one would you prefer? Yeah, just a few of you could. So I would prefer B, and that's how I marked it. A second one is about lifetime, and higher seems to be better. Yeah, I would go for A. Then we have cost of materials, and obviously we want to minimize expenditures on materials. So then I would vote for B. Another one is energy efficiency. So I'm aiming at making my product more energy efficient. So the higher is better. And A++ obviously is a higher class than E. Then I chose that one. And the last one is toxicity of materials. So obviously having some toxic substances is not preferred, so it's worse option, and not having is a better option. So we have 2 options here, and I would prefer not to have, so it's no. So what we could see here is that obviously when I reveal one criteria at the time, then making a decision is quite straightforward, because we could look at 2 numbers and see, depending on the trend, which one we desire. At the same time, when I have revealed more criteria with for both options, we could immediately see that some of them are contradicting. So we don't really have an option that is best on all parameters. And this is what research also shows, that it is likely to have contradictory results when we include more criteria, but when we also include criteria from different dimensions, from economic, social, and environmental. On the top of that, if we add few more, we also complicate it. It could also be some sustainability related measurements, or it could be other measurements like circularity measurements, the one that's very famous over here, MCI indicator, or all the other criteria. So what we could see is we would need to make prioritizations, right? And understanding, for instance, if we value lifetime more, then probably then we will need to compromise recyclability. At the same time, we also realize that even though we choose one option, we still might not attain better performance on all the parameters. So the question here, and the question that I was also asked during my case study, is how do we make a decision? What is the best? And is actually there a best option that would need to be considered for further development? And this is where I want to sort of kick off our discussion to have you engaged a bit more. First and foremost, we also realize that literature provides evidence that there is no support so far developed to help navigate in trade-off situations. Now, we specifically talk about sustainability-related trade-off situations in a structured manner. So it has first been reported almost 15 years ago, but recent literature also highlights that there is a gap. That's why I wanted to hear your experience and knowledge, whether we know how organizations, how practitioners make decisions when they experience trade-off situations, or when they experience challenging situations in their assessments or measurements. And then how can we actually support those decision-making processes when we realize that there are trade-offs to be made, and what risks, or are there any, if trade-offs are not addressed in a structured manner? So yeah, we have few minutes, and that's why I would like to hear your opinion on those. That's good. We have some answers here. So that's why I want to hear some of your opinions on the questions. I'll bring just the questions, sorry, on the screen so you see them. Yeah, so we got some, you could also request to open video and audio. Daniela is also facilitating the discussion. I'm not sure now if you could see a video very well. Yeah, anybody wants to take a lead on microphone, you can do it without video. But we have some suggestions here. First comes about LCA. Don't you think that LCA provides a structured tool for deciding among trade-offs? I think this is a very interesting question. And Jeremy, would you like to ask this question to the audience, or give an answer regarding using LCA to decide among trade-offs?
Sure. I mean, I'm happy to open it up to the audience too, but definitely one of the reasons that LCA exists is to help people trade off between, should we make it more energy efficient, or should we give it a longer lifetime, or more recyclable, etc. And I mean, obviously, it can't help you decide between environmental impacts and social impacts, or bigger picture stuff like that, and it doesn't do a great job of measuring toxicity. But I think it's a really good tool for some decision trade-offs.
Mm-hmm. So we have a few more suggestions. Decision making in design to use such methods as CET and HEP. What makes sustainability-oriented problems different? That's also a very good question. Yuri, would you like to speak up on your suggestion?
Yeah, thank you, Maria. Okay, you have already read the question, so
we
I
can't hear you, Yuri.
I can.
Yes, we can. Maybe you've muted, Yuri.
Do you hear me, Jeremy?
Yeah, Jeremy, you can mute individuals by pressing their speaker. So maybe you've muted Yuri by mistake. If you press on his speaker, you should be able to hear him again.
Okay, I tried clicking twice to mute and unmute him, but I don't know.
Can you see a speaker icon on his badge?
I guess he's coming in again. He just left out of the meeting. Yeah. Let's wait a second.
Can I maybe fill the space, Maria?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So I'm starting to write it, but I might as well say it now that we're waiting for. Fine. I think the crux of the matter here, Jeremy, and the reason for Maria's work here in this context is partly because we're looking at how to support product developers, and product developers don't necessarily have the time nor the knowledge to create or carry out a full LCA. So what we're trying to do here is to see how can we support trade-off decisions in the design room, where we don't necessarily have an LCA competency, don't necessarily have the time to do it, but would still like to get an idea of how do we make the decisions between these different trade-offs. Maybe it will lead us to an LCA later, but where you could say we're sort of pre-LCA screening in this context. And on top of that, as Mariia will get to, I think it's within a particular circular economy decision-making context, which you'll see later on some of the considerations become further away from something which is necessarily LCA ready. So maybe just as a support to that, to the answer to your question, Jeremy, whilst Yuri is coming back online.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
I hope I'm back online. Actually, I never lost you, but I think that there was some problems. Don't know if you hear me now.
You are very quiet now, Yuri.
Yeah, it seems very distant.
Hello?
It's
you hear me
very
now?
low.
Do you hear me? Yeah.
We can hear you very softly, Yuri. Maybe you'll have to look very much into the microphone and share.
Hello. I'm trying
Yes,
again.
That
it's
works.
better.
Yeah, I'm shouting. Maybe you hear me directly from Italy. Yeah. No, I followed the discussion, and I understand that in order to apply instrument like LCA, maybe you need to be quite at the end of the decision process and to have all the information available, which might not be always the case. I mean, in design is about using techniques like analytically hierarchy process or consensual assessment techniques. Are there any obstacles in doing so? And another thing that I had asked before in the chat, if you have also obstacles in using design instruments that are aimed at overcoming conflicts instead of finding trade-offs. For example, my first thoughts go on the treats theory, but don't know if it might be applicable in the specific cases you have analyzed.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I have noted your questions and possible answers on my notebook, but I would like to keep going and then readdress these same comments during later discussion points. Because what I want to do now, let me know if you could see the screen well. Yeah?
We see it, Mariia.
That's great, thank you. So what I wanted to do now with you is to work on a specific case where you would have some information revealed and act as designers to basically take a decision based on the information that I provide you with. Just a few practicalities before I divide you into rooms and groups. We will work for 15 minutes on a specific platform that is called Mural. I'll then share my screen to show you how it looks. So there is a short case, basically providing you some input information that could frame what sort of company you belong to and what kind of decision you are facing. And I also use some similar logic that I've presented just before to you, using few indicators and their measurements. So I'll present this in Mural and I'll divide you in few groups. Now knowing that you're around 20-30 people, you can be 10 people in the room to fill in the Mural form and sort of have some space to discuss. So I'll manually guide you into which groups you belong in. And then I'll also lead you to your breakout rooms that are saved for you in Hopin. I'll give you the link to those rooms. But the trick with those sessions is that you get a link to a separate Hopin room, and then you get a link to Mural. And those sessions are not moderated. So basically you act like in real life, you're a group there. So probably you could just understand who is in the room, and then some person can share the screen, and then you could discuss one by one, looking at the input information. You can discuss the questions that I have posted on the mural board, and then one person could just write them down, or can get a help from other people in the group. The trick is also that you could all speak or share your video, so it's quite free. And then you'll have some 15 minutes to do this exercise and prioritize one option and provide sort of justifications for supporting your decision. And then we will all get back to this main workshop session. And the way you do it, me and my helper will go into the breakout rooms and sort of nudge you to come back by clicking on a separate link that takes you back to this session room. Just some practicalities that once you get a link to your breakout session, close this window because then it may interfere with the video and audio. Otherwise, you could just use questions tab or chat tab to ask us questions. So as I've mentioned, this work will run for 15 minutes, and you will all receive links here in the chat. But before I share the links and tell you who is in what group, I'll share one mural board, so for you to understand how it looks. I guess I'll have to share my to share the screen instead of application. That's good. So I will send links to those mural boards for you, and this is sort of a very intuitive platform where you zoom in and out to take a look at what is inside. So as I mentioned, there is a case described very briefly to save our time, and also there is some background information using the same logic of indicators, options, and their measurements revealed here. And on the right, basically part number one, we need to discuss how do we make a decision by taking a look at the information we have available. So how do we make a decision? Which one do we prioritize? How do we prioritize? And the way you could sort of write your assumptions or inputs is just double clicking on those post-it notes and then just writing it down. Everything else is locked, so don't be afraid to click around. Nothing will be moved except for those post-it notes. And as I said, each group gets their own board, so you will work separately, but around 9-10 people in one group. And then you're welcome to either just to first discuss and then put your answers in the post-it notes. But you could also work sort of ahead and then just put your answers individually here. Right. That's good. We have some chat going on, but I'm not able to for a moment to keep up with it. We have 20 people in the room, so I'll have to manually get you assigned to the rooms. So let us assume that first 10 people on the list, we go into group number 1, and the next 10 will go into group number 2. I'll skip for now the facilitators here, and I guess I'll start with Pauline. So Pauline, Nicholas, Inigo, Jordan, Yuri, Ste, Patricia. So we have Carolina, Sofia, and Romina. You go to room number, to the breakout room number 1, and I'll share a link with you. Yeah? So once you go there, close this window. And there you have information how to access mural board. So it's ready for you, but I'll also come and visit you. Any questions so far? Who goes into the breakout room? And then obviously all the rest that I didn't name will go into the second room. Right here. And then moderators, we can choose which one we join. So it's almost 1:45, and I guess you just take it easy, take a cup of coffee, and then go into your breakout session rooms, and there you'll find a link to Mural where you could all collaborate. And after 15 minutes, I'll get back to you saying that we should all return to the main session. Is it clear? Yeah, some people have left, so I guess it is clear. So Fanika, you might also choose one of the rooms that you would like to join, and Tim, Daniela, you choose whatever room you feel like going.
Will do.
Don't forget to close this window.
All right.
Yeah, was it?
Mariia, not sure. Are you
Yeah.
adding the timer in the mural?
No,
If
I have
I
not,
wait
but
to have
I will.
I can help you. I'll be with you in a second
Where?
in your room.
Oh, okay, thank you. I forgot that you're offline. Yeah. All right. More people are coming back, so we'll wait for a few more and jump into your suggestions and results on the mural board. I'm currently sharing one of the group's results. Some of them are very small, but then you could maybe request them to share the results with you. I believe that we, arriving now. I believe we are all in here. Thank you so much for your contribution. So now I'm sharing a screen showing some of the results and discussion points that one group has had, and there is another one. It's updating now. Yeah, a few more for the group number 2. Great. So what I wanted to hear from you is how did you feel when making a decision? And I would like to, of course, start with number 1. So if anybody from a group number 1 could share their discussion points, just highlights, because you have got quite many proposals here. We have a person requesting to step in. Patricia, would you like to talk us through your group work?
Well, I don't know if I can do that. It's just an observation of the process.
It seems that I cannot hear you. Am I the only one?
I could hear her.
Yes, I could hear as well.
If I try again, can you hear me?
I cannot hear you, Patricia. Can anybody else hear Patricia?
Yes. Mariia,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear her too.
Yeah, I guess she's probably.
Yes. Okay, then I'll have to probably refresh my
We are inviting her to come and see from our office. We are all in the same floor, but in different rooms. So she might be coming back soon.
Sorry, I was lost for a minute. Is everything all right now?
We are trying to get Mariia back.
Okay. And everybody else is in session normally?
Oh, yeah, that's true. It seems that there are only 9 people. Oh, no, there are 17 people online. Should be everybody.
20.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Because my computer was frozen for a minute, but it's good that almost everything is under control. Okay.
Yeah, let's see if Mariia can come back. It's always challenging when trying new systems for the first time, so just bear with us. Should be okay soon.
I think it has disrupted something.
Maybe now? Can you hear me?
I could hear.
Me too.
Should I speak then?
But maybe the problem is because we have how many? Okay, no, it's 8 people. Should be.
Yes, you are welcome to speak. I'm so sorry. We have
Oh, no problem. I couldn't hear a lot of people before, and I had to change browsers, and then it worked. Well, I cannot give an overview of our session. It was just an observation of the process that I would like to make that maybe contributes also to your research. It was interesting that without a structure or guidance on how to do it, we went on doing the exercise individually, although we were in a group. Like, we had 0 discussions on, so we were individually just providing our inputs. It was pretty much mute the whole time. So I just wanted to make that observation that is interesting, even in that complex decision-making environment, we didn't talk to each other.
No, but I could see that you have come up with so many post-its. So I'll take a look at them during the break, but there are some good discussion points that I guess we would all benefit from reading. Do you have some highlights? So you have highlighted that it was difficult without structure.
Well, to create a collaboration and kind of like a joint view on how to make decisions. Like, we went on reflecting individually, and we didn't share with each other our reflections. So.
Okay, but what was your option? Did you make any decision? Did you prioritize any option here, or?
Well, from my perspective, I feel that there's too little information to make any good informed decision. Also, because some of the aspects would require a deeper understanding of what they're made of. So the conditions, for instance, like energy intensity, if it's good or bad, but it also depends on the source of energy, for instance, and how they will weigh against the other. So from my perspective, the criteria are trying to simplify something that maybe it's a little bit more complex, and it will require more information to be able to decide if A or B is better in that sense.
I see that there are a few hints here to use company's vision, and this is what I've also considered when proposing how to approach trade-off navigation technique that I'll present after the break. But this one I think is definitely worth considering. Value of the indicators. Has anybody meant something about how to weigh them, how to assign prioritization, and how to basically understand whether we value lifetime more than recyclability or toxicity? It's something that might also come up in the next part. I see that you don't see that I'm sharing, but I'll share in a second. The group number 2, could you take your could you summarize your takes on this problem? Did you find it complex, easy? Did you miss any information? Jeremy, would you like to?
I don't know about everyone else, but I definitely felt like we basically got nowhere because we were just sort of thrashing around frustratedly and wanting to translate it into different decision-making tools that we'd already used before, like decision matrices.
Peer-based comparison, somebody has written in your group. Yeah, that's good. Normalization, so basically to not to use units, but to normalize them according to a scale. Systems perspective, complete view on the product life cycle and social issues. That's a good point. Prioritization of long products. That's good. So you had some ideas or assumptions. What would you prioritize? I suggest we would have a quick break, and we return to the same session after 10 minutes. And then I'll introduce you to sort of some of the building blocks of what we see could help making any decisions. And as I see from your discussion, you also had those key points to address during the decision making. So right now it's at my clock, it's 13 past 2. So in 10 minutes, I would be happy to see you all back and try out next portion of the workshop. Yeah. Then I'll see you in 10 minutes.
Do you hear me? Just to ask, are people here? Yeah, you are. So just use this for the audio and video, and then use your screen. Try and share your screen now, because you can then just share your screen in your PowerPoints and that.
But wait, to disable you.
Just do it that way.
I just need to understand how this
Just
guy
talk into
works.
it.
We are back. Welcome back. Sorry for the issues. My computer just wouldn't do the things that I wanted to do. But thank you, Daniela, for facilitating the groups. And I guess the main takeaway from this exercise was to understand that indeed making decisions when we operate with a few criteria, but it's also that we don't know, as you've pointed out, some other background information that could lead us to make a more informed decision. So what we do next is obviously I've decided to provide more information on our take on developing a trade-off navigation support. So as I've mentioned before, we realized that there is no support available, and somehow your comments about why don't we use LCA or any other decision support tools like AHP or multi-criteria decision analysis, we couldn't see that there was a lot of studies showing application of those tools into early stages decision making, including sustainability trade-offs. So what we've done, we did a literature review trying to understand what is needed for the development of a trade-off navigation support. And that's what we focused on, and that's what we have also included in our design paper. But just to give you an idea what is inside and what we could see the literature suggested was to take into account how do we help eliciting sustainability objectives, and what tools to use to actually reveal trade-offs, because they might not be apparent in the first instance, saying that what we could see is that decisions are taken because there is either too little information available, or there is no boundary condition which could help making a decision, analyzing that how good or bad the performance we see is. And that's why we need tools that help revealing trade-offs. And in that example that you saw, I took part of our work with indicators where they were calculated, and basically then you could see that there are some measurements that could support your understanding where trade-offs are. What we could also see in the literature that we might need to enable evaluation of trade-off acceptability, meaning that what those numbers or what those results of our analysis of sustainability criteria, what do they tell us? Like how far can we, or how much of the performance can we achieve, and how much of the performance can be sort of compromised or accept being traded. So we need to understand what are the boundary conditions, and some of you in the mural boards have suggested bring some legal requirements or corporate vision to help making those boundary conditions. Then what literature suggests is to use some prioritization principles in conjunction. So probably making one or two where we would help making prioritizations or giving weighting tools to help sort of reconsider the value of those criteria or indicators. And I also remember one of the groups have stated this, like, how do we value those indicators, right? So this is something to take into account. And then, of course, last but not least, it needs to be easily understood and implemented by industrial practitioners. And what we have also discussed before the break, saying that quite often in the early design stages, of course, we don't have as much information as we might need to make sort of a more substantial, to support decision making. But it's also that in those early stages, we need something simple to help the practitioners to being able to see where they can make change to optimize their design. And of course, to maybe create a dialogue across or within or across organizations about maybe some boundary conditions and why they are as they are, because they influence the way we can design things. So just these few parameters or sort of criteria for the development could help us sort of understand what could the building blocks of a trade-off and navigation support be. And the way we approached it, and of course this is not a final version, that's why we are having this workshop to get bright insights and ideas how to optimize it and improve it. But what I've sort of I'm having here is this what is needed to support decision-making process, so the building blocks. And I have here like an empty matrix, and probably this is something that you could recognize from previous tasks. So we would need some input information to be able to create this understanding of the system, but also create boundary conditions within which we will be guided to make a decision. So we have sort of highlighted those building blocks, and we created a simple Excel sheet that I will share with you, and a quick guidance that will also be embedded in this Excel sheet that you will try today to implement and sort of give your feedback about. But just to make it quicker with these first types of building blocks, this is something that you saw on this example. So we need to specify what criteria are important for our design to be able to support decisions, right? And that's what you could see on those examples, those 5, 6, 7 criteria, showing that these are probably the ones that were considered important to make a decision. So we need to specify what those are. And as literature says, they should not be many, although some of you, of course, want to consider more parameters. But more parameters, of course, they can complicate the decision process, keeping again in mind that we are in the early stages of the design process. So we need, as literature suggests, 7 to 10 parameters, not more, or sustainability criteria to take into account for the decision making. Then we see that specifying design options or alternatives is of course important. And here there's also the same rule that we need few, but not more than probably 4 or 5, because then the design will be more complex. And the next building block is about specifying performance on each criteria for each alternative. So you could see I've provided some numbers to you, and we think that it is insightful to have those numbers, but we don't exclude qualitative assessment. So as you could see from an example, we could use grading systems like yes and no, or 1 to 5, helping us to understand sort of this, helping us to understand the performance on those criteria. So specifying performance either in a qualitative or quantitative manner is important. And then a few other building blocks is that we see that we need to ask to specify acceptable ranges for each criterion, and you will see in this Excel example what they are. And the basic idea, as some of you have also suggested before on this group work, is to understand what can be used to guide our decisions, right? Is it a corporate vision, a corporate strategy where we have specific targets, specific goals, objectives? Is it the legislation, regulation, standards? Is it our customers' requirements? So something that could point out at acceptability of that performance that we have calculated and revealed, right? We need to specify those ranges for each criterion. Then we would need to understand which what ranges are non-negotiable and negotiable, meaning that there might be some that are mandatory again, it can depend, either it's internal requirements, but still they're mandatory, or external requirements, such as legal requirements. But we need to understand which are sort of fixed or mandatory that we cannot compromise, and which are more or less flexible that we could then reconsider for our decision process. And then, of course, we need to evaluate alternatives, considering all these inputs and outputs. And we also, then we see, could be useful to apply some weighting and ranking techniques. So there are these building blocks that we could be helpful to guide the decision makers through, to understand basically how well each of their design options perform. Yeah, and we see that using acceptable ranges creates these boundary conditions within which we create, yeah, within which by having these sort of building blocks and structure and guidance, we see that it helps us to trace decisions. So understanding why one option was prioritized, or why one criterion was valued more than the others. And of course, it could also enable us to re-evaluate trade-offs with time, because conditions change, right? And a few of those examples I've given before, for instance, durability versus disassemblability and recyclability, those conditions can change and might not be in a trade-off situation anymore with time. So with this having said, how I envisaged our workshop is to return to your groups, and then there I have a new parts of your canvas or of your mural boards. So I'll just demonstrate the way you do. So just before you jump onto the next exercise, you go into the same room you have worked before, and I'll just remove some of the hidden spaces that weren't shown before. And what you need to do, of course, you need to focus on second part, which is shown right here, but numbered as 2. And you'll basically have more information about the sort of the acceptable ranges, boundary conditions. You will have the same input data, but you have more information added. What is also important is the embedded Excel file in here. So you just double click on the file and it opens. So you'll have to trust and download this workbook. And it's a simple Excel sheet that you will open and enter the data that is given as an example on this board. The basic idea is to follow the data that is provided on this board, enter into your Excel sheet, and then follow the guidance to understand how this is trying to help making a decision. So this is one part of the exercise. And the second part that I envisaged, which isn't really a different one, is that you then, depending on how much time is left, you then will be able to, because once you download the Excel file, it will be on your computer, then you will be able to play with the input information and see whether sort of changing the input information, whether the guidance can still support you with the changed inputs. And for that, I have planned 30 minutes. So what I suggest we do is we go back into the same rooms and use the space numbered as number 2 and work for half an hour. I'll just set up timers. And then we again come back to the main session to discuss how the process was and whether extra information has made support as it was intended. Great. Yes, I will just open a room for a second group. Both are open, and the way you can go, yes, is to scroll in the chat, but I could also just go back and insert new links. Thank you, Tim. I guess we would need to make them so you get, thank you, all links. Breakout room number 1 for group 1, and once you click on the link, you will also see your last mural board, so it's easy there. And I'll set a timer from now on once I insert group number 2. And in case you would like to speak over there, you need to either mute yourself in this room or just close this tab and go into a new tab for breakout rooms. Yeah, then in half an hour.
Hello?
Hello, I'm back.
Is this the main room again?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It wasn't sending me back, so I actually had
No.
to go all the way back to the like reception area
Yeah.
and then back to sessions.
Yes, me too.
Okay.
I have no idea if we did it right because we are the only ones.
Yeah. Good question.
But I can still see the chat menu, which is really...
I'll send a direct message to Daniela and see if Tim.
Carolina says that she's in too, but I cannot see her. So
Huh.
I did something. Okay, oh, I happened to invite Carolina to a private meeting room.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't know that was possible. Okay. Wow, I don't know this system, so I'm
Yeah, neither do I. Or wait, isn't Fanica the sort of tech support?
Yes, I'm here. I just wanted to ask if there is a certain problem.
Yeah,
What happened?
we were trying to get back to the main room, and I don't know, Sophie and I are the only ones here now, so we're worried that we did it wrong.
No,
No.
actually, you are in the room, and it's 9 people in the room, but only those that share the audio and video you can see here. But it's more people inside, so you can see those videos just for those that ask for the permission to share audio and video. But I think it
Okay.
should be more of them here.
Yeah, they're on their way back now.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, welcome back.
Okay.
We were a
Thank
bit engaged in our discussion.
Got it.
I see that we are missing a few more people, but let's give them a few minutes and jump into. I'm just updating my mural boards to see whether you had some specific questions about. Yeah. A few more people are missing. Great. I guess we could start. Yeah. So I was one of the sort of I joined one of the groups for the discussion, and I could see there were some sort of thoughts about how do we follow the guidance and why those acceptable limits are as they are. So we had some questions that I hoped we could resolve in this room together. But now I'm sharing. Now I'll share. Now I'm sharing one of the. Yeah, now I'm sharing one of the boards of group 1, and that's where I myself participated. I guess we were most engaged in the discussion. That's why there is a few post-its, but there is one answer on the board saying that we prioritize alternative B, and it's because it satisfies non-negotiable criteria, and one of them was community jobs. That's what we go with. And then I'll just quickly switch into board number 2. We have many more discussions, and I guess that's very similar. So you're right that option A didn't meet our requirements. Then it ruled out. Yeah, so you didn't proceed to next steps because only one option B was the one that satisfied your filter for non-negotiable criteria. Then we had some assumptions saying that if we change some non-negotiable criteria to negotiable ones, then we have both options that pass. But there are also more questions here saying that order of operations is confusing, you need more guidance, complicated, unclear what acceptable ranges are. Yeah. So what I wanted to discuss with you, whether you have some feedback about what you saw on this Excel file and whether you could follow the logic. But first and foremost, I want to highlight that what I could see was common is that you both obviously ruled out option 1 and went straight with option B because according to the input data, that's what satisfied your input data. But I'm also curious about how did you find this whole setup with building blocks and then input information and then guidance. How did you find it? Whether it could be something that could help creating those boundary conditions. So just feel free to join the discussion, and then we could also discuss those key questions that I see here on the board, but also that I got in the chat before. Anybody that wants to have shared video and audio? Yeah, I see. I hear somebody has enabled their microphone. Anybody? Sophie?
Maybe I can start. Yes, because we were discussing the table, and one part that we also really think was good is that it actually is possible to make it clear when you have a trade-off situation. So with this example, we didn't come that far because we didn't try out different ranges or added new criteria indicators, but we assume that actually if you do that and add more of those, that you could come into the situation where you really have a trade-off situation, and this table would in that case clarify or that make that transparent and visible. And we thought that was a good part with this.
Thank you. Did you try to change some of the input, whether there were trade-offs? Because the way I gave was more like straightforward, that there is one option that was more or less a clear winner.
Yeah, no, unfortunately we didn't come that far.
No.
But we were discussing that it could have been interesting if we had had an example that was actually a trade-off situation. But now we realized that we didn't had time to add that into this time.
So let me ask
we
you
kind
one
of felt
question.
like we only. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we kind of felt like we
go
only
ahead.
used maybe half of the infrastructure that was built out there, because or less than half of it, because the decision was made so quickly by the non-negotiable deal breaker.
Yeah. I would have hoped that you would have more time to play, but let me address this question of, so even though you made this decision very quickly because you could see that there is one winning option, which was B, one of the examples or one of the questions that the other group asks, and I guess we need here this common discussion, saying that now we see that option B was winning, but what about extremes? For instance, we could see that energy intensity was the extreme for option B, and despite that, we still go for option B. So, do you have any comments regarding that? Did you that even though option B was a clear winner, you still compromised on energy, which was almost 3-4 times more intense than the option number A.
Yeah, and I think the reason for this is because the infrastructure didn't let us prioritize in a varied way. It basically only gave us 2 levels of like negotiable and non-negotiable. rather than saying, you know, this criteria is extremely important, this criterion is somewhat important, this criterion is very low priority. You know, like in a normal decision matrix, you can just put different numbers, whereas this was just very binary. Either it's totally non-negotiable, in which case everything else has to be compromised as much as possible to meet these non-negotiable things.
Okay, that's a good tip. I'll address it.
But it would be nice if that situation, which you mentioned here now, if you have something that's on the very extreme, if that could be highlighted as well, maybe automatically in the diagram, so that you draw attention towards that indicator as well.
Yeah, because again, the color coding, like it was nice that there was this automatic color coding based on the thresholds, but that was also very binary. It was either it was in or it was out. And again, if that could be a spectrum, that would help as well.
We also discussed.
I agree with Jeremy, and ideally, if I mean, just like Jeremy said, if there could be weighting for different indicators and make everything more like a spectrum, that would be ideal. And my alternative suggestion is, instead of making it so detailed, maybe you can add 2 more binary decision range. Now you only have acceptable, but you don't have this range. For example, the extreme case that I just gave is not the case that you already gave, which is 10,000. I was saying that what if it's 1 million? Then it is really extreme, and maybe you want another filter to highlight that, just like Matilda said.
Thank you.
That would be a way to, that would be a way to help the decision makers maybe identify potential sub-optimizations that they don't necessarily want to, how do you say, create, but are still creating.
Yeah. I'll also ask you to fill in a questionnaire to help me to understand where to introduce improvements. But before that, and I'll ask you to fill that in while we are here, so I could use those suggestions already from today on. But before we go to that, there was also one sort of challenge highlighted in one group saying, how do we avoid greenwashing? Like how do we make sure that at least when speaking of, or when going and classifying them as non-negotiable and negotiable and ranges, how do we sort of avoid greenwashing or biased selection? Because we would probably go for the criteria we already know that we are doing good for, right? Instead of focusing on those that we are probably compromising. So there is a question about greenwashing. I guess it was Jordan. Would you like to repeat your question? I don't think I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. There. I guess my question or my concern was that unless these organizations are intrinsically motivated to attend to sustainable issues from some other motivation source, they might use a tool like this to give lists of criteria which they've already done well on their current products, use it as a stamp or a marker that, yeah, this is the best option we have, right? Use it as marketing tools. But this is kind of an inherent to a lot of sustainable indicators and sustainable design tools, that it doesn't really account for the motivation of the firms behind it. But It was more of a concern, but not necessarily a full-blown question.
I think that's
But
an interesting point to raise, though.
Yeah. But do you see the concern related to selecting indicators in a biased way, or sort of tweaking the acceptable ranges? Because if they're negotiable, then we just don't pay attention to what the acceptable ranges are, and for those that are non-negotiable, then we select indicators that we would know that would show good results on, right? Is it what where do
Well,
we
it could happen both.
face mostly? Yeah, where do we need to help to choose in a non-biased way in both, you're saying?
Yeah.
Any feedback on that issue of a biased selection or a biased prioritization? Because you've also addressed that. One of your comments before was saying that we need to introduce weighting. What do we value the most? But isn't it also, in a way, a very subjective way of putting values on criteria?
Well, and in the LCA world, this is why some people argue really strongly for single score LCAs,
Yeah.
rather than looking at lots of different criteria separately, because when you look at lots of different criteria separately, it lets the company weigh them however they want and to do exactly what Jordan is talking about. And if you use the sort of academically vetted and created single score LCAs, it doesn't let people do that. So you could decide on a weighting system that you declare is a good one for this when you put out a tool if you want. But I think it would be very dependent on the product category or industry. Might be difficult.
Yeah, that's a good point to understand which one to use.
My opinion is that there are always limitations to any tool, and if we are worried about the greenwashing that Jordan mentioned, but actually maybe that shouldn't be that much a concern in our case, because this tool is used by product developers, and we are not going to communicate this as kind of eco labels to the customer, so it doesn't serve the purpose of brainwashing the customers in this case, maybe. And if the audience is the product developers, and since there are always limitations with any tool, all we can do is trying to be transparent so that the users know the logic of the tool and will be aware of any potential risk, like we just mentioned, that it may cause some biased decision from misjudging some extreme case or setting the criteria in an undesirable way. That's my 2 cents.
That's
And that's where I think it could be useful if, or where one of the useful things with this type of tool lies, and that it has the opportunity to highlight and lift up what the discussion was and what the identified trade-offs were, so that, for instance, you have a strategic goal setting a non-negotiable criteria on one of these sustainability indicators. You can have something to fall back to if you would wish to go further up in the organization and question that, whether you can step away from that strategic goal without having documented that in some way. It would just be a feeling, but now at least it's documented and visualized aspect of some sort.
Thank you for your comment, Matilda. And I would also give one of that we have also experienced when going through these calculations and criteria and understanding which ones are important. So we also have like one criteria which was related to a product's component. And there was sort of this discussion that it has to be of a specific color, and that's why we cannot use material A, B, and C. And then the question was from this logic, but why there is this requirement? And the designer team couldn't actually trace back why the decision was like that, why the color of that component had to be white, because then it sort of impeded them from introducing other materials, for instance, recycled materials that could be of a very mixed color. So the intention was also to create this dialogue to say that what we are doing there, and to discuss with each other why things, why do we want these things, how can we optimize them, right? And it's also, if we have put some parameters as non-negotiable, where do they come from? Are they really non-negotiable? Because that's what I said, like, do we know where those requirements come from? Is it a customer? Can we convince customer to prioritize another color, for instance, right? If we see that it helps on the rest of parameters. And you're right, of course, that few of these guidance in the Excel file you weren't able to go through because of the example. But the idea was to let you play in that tool and see that if you change parameters and make your assumptions and create this dialogue, maybe you would choose option A instead, or maybe you would say that none of the options are good enough, actually, right? So it's more this, indeed, about traceability rather than just a mathematical answer saying that B is the total winner, because you could see that it doesn't win on other criteria which may seem more extreme, for instance, energy intensity. Very good. Any other? As I mentioned to the group, you have access to Mural. I guess you could also request a link afterwards, and it will be open for you to take a look at what others have written. But that file in Excel, it was sort of more of a condensed version, so you're also welcome to play with it and give us a feedback. Any other?
Following up,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, but just following up on what Matilda was saying, would it be too simple a solution to just have a decision matrix with one column for writing notes or discussion on why they decided the priority, why the weighting for that criterion was the way it is, why the priority is the way it is, and then another column to set thresholds for what counts as a good and bad score? You know, because if you're still just rating each of your design ideas qualitatively on a scale of 1 to 5, you could have a rubric for like a score of 1 means, 10,000 kilowatt hours or greater of energy use, and a score of 2 means this, and a score of 5 means 2,000 kilowatt hours or less, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you could have different criteria, different rubrics set out for each, whether they be environmental or social or economic or qualitative, quantitative.
Yeah, I see. I follow your suggestion. I'm just writing it down. To let them themselves decide on the scales, what is bad, right, and what is good. Indeed, it could be a good option. I wanted to use this opportunity to have you all to answer the questions to help us improve the tool. And I've compiled a questionnaire of about 10 questions that I would like you to answer. I'll just provide a link in the chat so you could all follow and fill it in while we are here, and use this workshop time to finish with a feedback. But as I mentioned, it's still a work in progress. So if you play with the tools, and you come up with other ideas, you're always welcome to let us know what to improve. Now I've lost my chat. Great. So I've posted a link to Google Docs, and I would like you to go and indicate your answers on that form using this time we have left for the workshop. And in case you need more support and understanding what questions, you go back to Mural or open that Excel file to see what you refer to. So if you just could take 5-7 minutes to answer the survey.
So Mariia, it's 10 to 4 now, and do you want to say something before we start with some information about the Sustainable Design SIG?
Yeah, thank you. So just a closing remark. I'm not sure anything more to say a great thank you to all the participants and to the facilitators that were so active. And as I mentioned in my comments, that I'll consider all your insights, and I'm available for discussion in the upcoming weeks. So if you were curious to know more, and if there are any references that you feel like I could provide, then just contact us, or if you feel like you have some feedback, you are also welcome. But I thank you for today, and I hope to continue making these sessions in the future.
Thank you very much. And I also would like to say thank you for a very well organized and interesting and relevant workshop. So it was great to participate. So I will now continue with some information regarding sustainable design SIG, as we have our annual meeting in these conferences. So every year we normally decide about some working activities in the SIG group and the steering group. And this year we have been working with 3 different topics. One is about special issue in the sustainability journal that actually Yuri will talk more about. We have a set of webinars that Daniela will go through a little bit, and also funding opportunities that we have listed for our members. So we will give you some short presentations and information regarding these topics. And I will see if Yuri is still here, if you can say something about the special issue. So let's see, I cannot see if he is here. I know he had to go earlier, so maybe I take this instead then. So one of the topics which have been led by Yuri and also Jan is that we have started up a special issue, which is the title Designed to Drive Behavior Change for Sustainability and Circular Economy. And the reason for this topic is that we see that many methods have been developed, and we also see that we have new concepts like circular economy that is actually a way to create change the linear society to more circular society, more sustainable society. But still we can see that there are only incremental improvements, and also a lot of more sustainable products are not replaced by unsustainable, more sustainable is not replaced by the unsustainable products. Or the unsustainable products are not replaced by sustainable products, sorry. And then also we can see the consumption and production patterns are still very unsustainable, and we also see rebound effects. So therefore we initiated this special issue, and we would like everyone that are interested in this to contribute to this special issue. You are very welcome to find more information about this, just to go into this web page available on Sustainability Journal. Then we have the second working group. I don't know, Jeremy and Daniela, if you want to add anything to this, you're welcome to just add and fill in, as Yuri is not here.
Thanks, I'm good.
Okay, so now we have a little bit more information about the a set of webinars that we have organized, and Daniela will talk more about that.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Sophie. So over the last year, we've been organizing a number of webinars in the Sustainable Design SIG, which are open for the overall community, and all the recordings are available in our Sustainable Design website at the Design Society page. Here's an overview of all of the 7 webinars we had so far, and we still have 2 to go in November and December. So one from equipment and the other one from Grundfos. In those webinars, what we tried to do was to bring both academics and people from industry to discuss challenges, opportunities, and overall ideas about how to advance sustainable design. In total, we managed to have a number of 125 registered participants, which was really nice, and it was actually a good surprise for us. When we started, we were a bit unsure and a bit afraid about how many people would actually be interested in having those webinars. and we were really positively surprised by the high attendance. Due to the webinars, we managed to get a number of new followers at our Sustainable Design SIG LinkedIn. It's actually 100 more from when we started. We are almost 1,000 just now, which is really great. And I'd like to reinforce that all of the recordings for the previous webinars, they are available for all Design Society members for free at our website. I see that Tim just pasted that into the chat. But you and anybody who wants to participate live are very welcome, and it's free for everybody. We are, of course, planning a new round of webinars for next year. So if you have ideas of speakers or maybe topics that you want to hear more about, please just write to me and to us at the SIG, and we'll make sure to bring some exciting speakers for you as well.
Thank you, Daniela. And now we have Jeremy, who will talk a little bit about funding opportunities.
Yeah, and I guess I can share my screen here. So we in the steering committee have tried to put together some resources on what funding opportunities are out there. And so if you go to the Sustainable Design SIG page and scroll down to latest news and events, and you click on funding opportunities, you'll get this page that just says a little blurb. It's basically just a pointer to this spreadsheet here, which is a Google Doc spreadsheet listing a bunch of various grants. It shows you who the funder is, the title, call, deadline, a link to it, budget and time, eligibility, and a description. And so this is just to support the sustainable design SIG and the community, because this is a network, and we want people to build connections between each other and to work together on things and to get funding and be successful. And so also, as it says on the page that links to it, if you want to find partners to work on these, joint grants, then you can go to our LinkedIn group and put out calls for partners there. So yeah, and were we going to talk about the research roadmap recruiting here?
Yeah, I think you can mention that, Jeremy. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So another thing that you'll see on the website, again in the news section, is this research roadmap that some of us came up with too, and it's on the online learning zone as well. And it's a link to a paper that some of us did recently, where we're making this call to action for sustainable design research for the next 10 years, and how we can make sustainable design tools and methods better for industry, so that we make industry more effective in sustainability, and we get people to actually adopt these tools. And so, yeah, just a quick overview. There are 4 research questions. What are the clarifying the needs and values of industry, making better sustainable design methods and tools, that's what SDMT is, and then improving the process of how we develop SDMTs, and how do we integrate into industry better. And each of those research questions has various themes and tasks that are associated with that are proposed in the paper. So this is for research question 1, 3 themes, and a whole bunch of research questions. Research question 2, themes and tasks, research question 3. And so each of these themes could be a whole PhD, or it could be a master's student project, or just partnership with industry. In fact, most of these we encourage partnership with industry. And yeah, and so you can see there's a whole lot of detail here, and we would love to get other people involved and coordinating with each other, and again, partnering with each other to try to answer these questions that we think are really crucial for the next 10 years of sustainable design research, to really get it deeply embedded in the way that all manufacturing and product design happens. So, so yeah, please check that out. And if we're planning to have an event, a little workshop where we get people to sign up for things and sign up to work together and find partners on things, maybe in January or February. So keep an eye out on the Sustainable Design SIG website for calls for those workshops.
Thank you, Jeremy. And as we said, we also maybe consider to have workshops, particularly regarding those those different questions and based on the paper. So we would like to know what activities you would like to see and what other themes we should focus on in 2021 next year. That for us to give some guidance. So please, if you have ideas, you could either use a chat or you could just email us and give us ideas for what things you would like to see and what things you think is important for us to prioritize. For sure, we'll continue with the webinars because that have been very successful. But we also, as Jeremy said, consider to run a few workshops online. And of course, it would be interesting for us to know then which topics you would like to have. So you're very welcome to give us feedback, and also you see a lot of information on our homepage, both in Design Society homepage, but also specifically if you go down to the SIG, the special interest groups, you can see more information there.
Yeah, and actually, I think it might be most interesting for people to see what they are already working on and how it fits into that research roadmap and how they might find partners to help them out with what they're already doing, possibly.
Yeah. Yeah. So for us, we don't have more information, but we would like to open up if you have questions or if you have ideas and thoughts that you would see that this SIG group would run and work for. So please just speak up if you have something for us. So what I will do is I can add my email address into the chat box, and if you come up with ideas for us that you think would be interesting for us to run through this SIG, please just send us some thoughts and ideas, and we will try to do what we can. Otherwise, it's 4 o'clock, and I don't have more information or anything new for now. So I will say thank you.